Chapter 9. Stop talking in circles. Why you keep having the same fight and how to finally break free. Ever feel like you're stuck in a conversation déjà vu? Same words, same fight, same emotional exhaustion? Welcome to The Loop. This chapter is a lifeline for anyone who's been trapped in repetitive arguments that never resolve. Whether it's a partner, a parent, or a colleague, you know the drill. What starts as a disagreement about dishes or deadlines quickly spirals into a dance of blame, shutdowns, and emotional retreat. You say the same things, they say the same things, and nothing ever really changes. But here's the secret no one tells you. Most circular arguments aren't about logic. They're about unspoken emotions. And until you name the feeling underneath, you'll keep spinning your wheels. In Chapter 9, you'll meet real characters like Jasmine and Corey, who fight about chores but are really battling unseen wounds. You'll witness moments of raw honesty, where someone finally stops defending and starts revealing. You'll also learn the 3R framework to recognize the loop, reveal the emotion, and reframe the response so the connection becomes possible again. This isn't about winning with the right words. It's about breaking patterns with brave ones. If you've ever said, "We've had this argument 100 times," this chapter is your map out. Because you're not failing at communication, you're just trapped in choreography. And it's time to write a new rhythm. If you feel like you're arguing in a loop, it's because the emotion hasn't been acknowledged. Only the logic has. Opening scene. The broken record fight. Jasmine stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, staring at a sink full of dishes. Corey walked in from the living room humming. "I'm always the one who has to remind you," Jasmine said, voice tight. Corey, already defensive, shot back. "And I'm always the one who has to defend myself." "You're missing the point again. We've had this exact conversation before." He sighed. "No, we've had different versions of the same overreaction." My reflection. This wasn't about dishes. It wasn't about time. It was a loop, a familiar track pressed play again. No matter how loud or logical they never got through, because they weren't talking about what really mattered underneath. Real talk from Jermaine. A circular conversation is an emotional loop in disguise. It looks like a fight about socks, or a disagreement about dinner, or a passive-aggressive jab about who forgot to text back. But if you zoom out, what you'll see isn't logic battling logic. It's emotion trying to be heard through the wrong channels. Circular conversations are emotional loops wearing logical masks. They're not about what's said. They're about what's left unsaid. We try to win the moment with reasoning, when what we need is resonance. Logic doesn't soothe the wound it didn't cause. Red flags that you're in a loop. You know you're trapped in a loop when the argument feels recycled, not resolved. You find yourself saying, "Here we go again." Each side has memorized their lines. You leave the conversation more exhausted than clear. If the problem keeps changing but the feeling stays the same, you're not solving a problem. You're circling a pain. People don't get stuck because the solution is complex. They get stuck because the emotion is unacknowledged. Character case study. Mateo and his manager, Claire. Mateo sat across from Claire for their third one-on-one that quarter. The topic? Productivity. Again. "I'm doing my best," he said, "but these deadlines keep piling up." Claire responded like clockwork. "Let's look at your workflow again. I can help you prioritize using a better method." Mateo paused. This time he didn't nod. "Claire," he said gently, "you keep giving me tools. I need you to hear that I'm burned out." My reflection. Mateo wasn't asking for better software. He was asking to be seen. Claire wasn't ignoring him maliciously. She just kept responding to the logic, not the feeling. And the conversation stayed stuck. Why we talk in circles. We're trained to fix. We're rewarded for problem solving, so we reach for answers, strategies, and schedules. But not all problems are logistical. Some are emotional, and emotional wounds don't need solutions. They need space. Talking in circles is what happens when logic keeps sprinting ahead, and emotion is left waiting at the start line. Dialogue break. Real versus circular. Carmen. Why do you always get quiet when I bring up something serious? Devin. Because every time I talk, you make it sound like I'm wrong. Carmen. That's not what I mean. Devin. Then what do you mean? Because we've had the same fight 4 times this month. Carmen, pausing. I think what I really mean is, I want to feel like we're on the same team, and when you go quiet, I feel alone. Devin, softer. I wasn't trying to leave you alone. I just get overwhelmed, but I want to be better about showing that I'm still here. A real connection doesn't require a new argument, just a new honesty. Teach. Say the feeling, not just the fact. When you say you never help, you're really saying, I feel unsupported. When you say you don't listen, you're really saying, I feel invisible. When you say, we've talked about this already, you're really saying, I don't feel heard. Get out of the loop by naming the layer underneath. Say the emotion. Give it a voice. Let it breathe. How to break the loop. The 3R framework. 1. Recognize the pattern. This feels like a loop. Maybe we're not talking about what we really need. 2. Reveal the emotion. I feel overlooked, not just annoyed. That's what I'm reacting to. 3. Reframe the response. Instead of debating again, can we talk about what's under this? You don't have to be a therapist. You just have to stop hiding the feelings behind the fact. Scripted tools to interrupt the cycle. Use these phrases mid-loop. Let me pause. I think I'm repeating myself instead of expressing myself. We've had this talk before, but I don't think we've said what's underneath. I want to get out of this loop. Can I be honest about what I'm really feeling? These aren't tricks, they're exits. The conversation isn't about repeating until someone gives up. It's about getting honest enough that someone softens. Character case study, Serena and Jordan. Jordan scrolled his phone as Serena vented about being left out of his family's weekend plans. You're overthinking it, he said, not looking up. They didn't plan it to exclude you. She clenched her fists. That's not the point. I'm not asking for an explanation. I'm asking if you get how that felt. He looked up finally. You're right. I went logical too fast. That probably felt like I was defending them instead of protecting you. My reflection. Serena didn't need logistics. She needed loyalty. And Jordan finally heard the emotion instead of the excuse. Reflection prompt. What loop are you in? Ask yourself, what's the fight that keeps showing up in different clothes? What emotion do I keep avoiding in this conversation? Have I said what I feel or just what I think? Break the loop by breaking your silence on what you really need. Final thought. Loops end when emotion is named. Most conversations don't need a better argument. They need a braver one. One that stops running in circles and starts walking toward a truth. You don't need to talk louder. You need to speak deeper. And sometimes that starts with a sentence as simple as, I've been saying the same thing, but I haven't been saying what I feel. Scene reset. The argument that won't die. The air in the kitchen was thick. Again. Jasmine pointed at the overflowing trash can. You always wait until I say something. Why can't you just notice it on your own? Corey clenched his jaw. Because you make everything a test. I'm supposed to fail. Jasmine exhaled, tired.